On a cold, rainy night in late November, the last train of the evening pulled away from the bustling city, its headlights cutting through the thick fog that enveloped the tracks. Inside the dimly lit car, a diverse group of passengers settled into their seats, each with their own burdens weighing heavily on their hearts. Sarah, a young woman in her 20s, stared out the window, lost in thought as she replayed the painful breakup with her boyfriend. She had hoped to escape the memories of their life together, but the rain only seemed to echo her sadness. Across the aisle sat Mr. Thompson, an elderly man with a weathered face and a mysterious briefcase at his side. He glanced at Sarah, sensing her turmoil, but chose to keep his thoughts to himself. He was on his way to deliver a long-overdue letter to an old friend, a task he had put off for far too long. He felt the weight of regret pressing down on him, wishing he had reached out sooner. In the corner, Jake, a disheveled musician in his 30s, strummed softly on his guitar, trying to drown out the noise of his self-doubt. He had just returned from a failed audition, his dreams of making it big feeling more distant than ever. The train rocked gently as it picked up speed, and he closed his eyes, hoping to find solace in his music. As the train sped through the dark countryside, the weather worsened. Lightning flashed, illuminating the trees outside, and thunder rumbled ominously. Suddenly, without warning, the train lurched violently, throwing passengers from their seats. A deafening crash followed, and the world outside turned chaotic as the train derailed, tumbling down an embankment and coming to a halt in a tangle of metal and shattered glass. When the dust settled, Sarah groaned as she pushed herself up from the floor, her heart racing. The train was eerily quiet, save for the distant sound of rain pattering against the wreckage. She quickly checked on Mr. Thompson, who was struggling to free himself from a fallen seat. With her help, he managed to stand, albeit shakily. Jake, still clutching his guitar, joined them, his eyes wide with shock. "Is everyone okay?" Sarah called out, her voice trembling as she surveyed the scene. Other passengers began to emerge from the wreckage, some injured, but most shaken. They gathered in a small clearing, illuminated by the faint glow of the train's emergency lights. As they assessed their situation, panic began to set in. The train was stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense woods and darkness. With no cell service and the storm showing no signs of letting up, they realized they had to work together to survive until help arrived. Mr. Thompson took charge, using his experience as a former conductor to organize the group. "We need to stay calm and find a way to signal for help," he declared, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Sarah and Jake exchanged glances, feeling a sense of responsibility to support the older man. As they gathered supplies from the wreckage, the passengers began to share their stories, their fears and hopes intertwining in the dim light. Sarah spoke of her recent heartbreak, her voice cracking as she recounted the moments that led to her decision to leave everything behind. Mr. Thompson revealed that he had lost touch with his childhood friend, a rift that had haunted him for decades. Jake, encouraged by their vulnerability, opened up about his struggles in the music industry, sharing how he had always felt like an outsider. As the night wore on, the storm raged outside, but inside their makeshift camp, a bond began to form. They took turns telling stories, laughing and crying together, finding solace in their shared experiences. Sarah found strength in her new friends, realizing that she wasn't alone in her struggles. Mr. Thompson felt a renewed sense of purpose, inspired by the resilience of the younger passengers. Jake, too, began to reclaim his passion for music, strumming his guitar softly as the others sang along, their voices rising above the storm. Hours passed, and just as dawn began to break, the sound of distant sirens pierced the air. The group erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted as they realized help was finally on the way. As they waited for the rescue team, they shared one last moment together, promising to stay in touch and support one another in their journeys ahead. When the first responders arrived, they found a group of strangers transformed into friends, united by a harrowing experience that had brought them closer than they ever imagined. As they climbed aboard the rescue vehicles, Sarah, Mr. Thompson, and Jake exchanged heartfelt goodbyes, knowing that this unexpected journey had changed them forever. In the weeks that followed, they kept their promise to stay connected, sharing updates and supporting each other through life's challenges.